Welcome to the 28th edition of Dialogue with the Experts, produced by Prime Point Foundation and eMagaqzine PreSense. Today, we are having our guest, Madam Subhashini Ganapathy, one of the popular chartered accountants at Chennai. She is creating a lot of taxation awareness among the people through various programs and through participation in various seminars and webinars. She is also the faculty member to provide awareness and provide knowledge to the Income Tax Department people in the Income Tax Department itself. We are fortunate to have her time to discuss about the re-registration process for NGOs. Welcome, Madam Subhashini Ganapathy. We are very fortunate to have you with us today.
Thank you, sir.
Recently, the government of India has made some announcement that some certain type of NGOs have to re-register. What are the type of NGOs that have to be re-registered? Why this sudden rule has been given by the government of India? Suppose if they don't re-register, what are the implications? And because of the lockdown, lot of dislocations are there, both at the public level and also at the chartered accountants and income tax level, it's still a lot of dislocations are there. When is the due date for that? Then we will go for the process.
Great, sir. To answer your question, this is really a complete sea change in the NGO space. To ask this question as to why, because we are already in a kind of pandemic situation where the government is not able to, it's humanly impossible for any government to handle all the situation all by itself. So the extended arm, the co-opted people are the NGOs who are supporting the public on ground. At this point in time, at this critical time, is this really necessary to bring in this kind of change is a question that everybody has. But the answer is simple. This actually was brought in the budget 2019, where our finance minister duly acknowledged the efforts by the NGOs. And she also said there is a lot of mismatch, probably the background, if we really look at the background as to why this change has been brought in. Absolutely, like in the digital era, data analytics is becoming like, the norm of the era. So with all the online returns and data which is getting populated from different sources, when they collate the data, the government is finding a huge mismatch between the donations which are being given as donations to NGOs, which actually flows into the NGOs, the donations which the NGOs receive, and the ones which go into the corpus. Technically, if it goes to the corpus, it is not available for application in that year. So all this accumulation and the actual effect which is happening on ground, there is a total mismatch between the investment which is going into the NGOs and the effect which is coming there. So that is the reason there is a holistic change in the NGO arena in terms of the CSR activities, in terms of the foreign funds, in terms of the income tax, everywhere. Now, coming to your next question as to who has to re-register, which are the categories of NGOs who have to re-register? The answer is very, very simple. All the non-profit organizations, being it could be trust, it could be in the form of society, it could be in the form of a company. Either it was a Section 25 company earlier, now it is Section 8 company. Whoever it is, however old they are, irrespective of the constitution of trustees, irrespective of the image they carry, irrespective of the size of the trust, every single trust has to go through this process. To say like, what is the government going to achieve by making everybody re-register in this pandemic situation, where it is practically difficult for the trustees to go through this process, difficult for the chartered accountants to go through this process, and even for the government at the time when they are going to release, they have released the 2.0 version of the income tax side. Now, this is one other additional burden which the government has to look into. So when we do a small analysis on this, when the government wants to really monitor, put everybody in the lens, if the government were to go to every single NGO to do an audit, to do a check as to whether they are doing the right things, whether the money is actually deployed for the purpose for which it was established, whether all the rules of the income tax and other laws are being followed. It's just going to be practically impossible for the government to do. So the OECD, the mantra of OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, where we borrow a lot of ideas from them, they say for any developing nation, the mantra is to make compliance easy and to make non-compliance very, very difficult. And to implement that mantra here, voluntary compliance is the only way for this kind of a nation with such huge population, such huge diversity, and different kind of, so much of diversity in the nation. So this is the only way. So to bring in the voluntary compliance, now the government is saying, if I have to come to you and check, it is just going to be impossible. So you do a check yourself and you come to us if you are clean. That is exactly the exercise which the government is going to do. And the last date, according to the government, as of today is 30th June 2021. But this is hopefully this will definitely get extended because the 2.0 version of the website, technically the website was not available for 7 days from 1st June. And even today we are facing technical glitches. We are on 12th June today and we just have 18 days to go. So with all probabilities, the government should extend the due date for this renewal. So coming to the last part of your question, as to what will happen if the non-profit organizations, the trust, don't register themselves, they don't come into this re-registration process. They will tend to lose all the benefits, whatever they were enjoying under the Income Tax Act. So they may have approval under 12AA, 12A, 80G, 1023C, Section 35, whatever be the approvals, whatever be the exemptions they were enjoying under the Income Tax Act will stand suspended from 1st April 2021. So to enjoy the exemptions, to continue being the continue the status of the trust, to continue the activities as a trust, as a non-profit organizations, because the very idea of being a trust or a non-profit organization is the benefit they get under the Income Tax Act, that they don't have to pay taxes provided they fulfill all the conditions. So that very vital point, that very center point will get lost. So it is compulsory for every single trust to go through this re-registration process.
Now, when you say non-profit organization, it can be a Section 8 company, or it can be a society, or it can be a trust registered under a Trust Act. Any one of this, is it not?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Either,
Yes, sir.
either of these societies are coming under State Government Act.
Yes,
okay. Now, there may be an organization, a trust which was floats from 25 years back or 30 years back. Today, there might have been a lot of trustees might have been changed. Even but some of them may not exist, or some of them may exist, or their purpose or the objectives also might have been changed depending on the time factor. What was started some 25, 30 years back, now today technological era, they might be. Is it required that a codicil or an amendment to the trust deed has to be registered before going in for re-registration, or after re-registration can the trust can be amendment can be made, or does it require an approval from the ITO? Earlier 12AA, if you want to make any amendment, you need to get an approval from the Commissioner of Income Tax exemption. Now in that particular case, the old cases and other things, how do you suggest?
That's a perfect and pertinent question for this time. And all the trustees, I mean, invariably, many of the trust, as you rightly said, the trustees would have changed, the address would have changed, the objectives would have changed. I mean, there would have been like so many changes. Now, as I told you, the very idea of doing this re-registration processes, the government is actually giving time to the organization to look back and check whether they are compliant with all other laws, whether everything is live, whether the trust deed and the actual activities are in consonance with each other. So the right way will be to inform the CIT. As you rightly said, we need to get the permission of the CIT before doing any change in the trust deed, because technically the trust deed which we presented at that time, at that point in time when we sought the approval, is the basis for the approval. So had there been any change, that could be a change which might actually affect your approval itself. So that is the reason that we will have to take the CIT's approval for any change. So step one will be an internal resolution to do a check and make the changes and create a draft amendment deed. Step 2 will be seeking permission from the CIT. Step 3 will be registering the deed. I mean, registering the document in whichever act it may pertain to. And step 4 will be the re-registration. But given the time constraints, given the lockdown situation and all this may not be practically possible. So we'll have to look at the trust and the organization case by case, and we might take a call here and there, whichever is feasible without violating the law.
Oh, that means even we can go for the trust can go for a registration with the help of a chartered accountant, and then they can go for a re-registration with a new amended old document plus new document.
Yes, sir. I mean, 10A is the form which is prescribed for this re-registration. And there is a form 10AB, which is prescribed for any changes. So in this situation, probably we can even add, you will have options to do attachments there. So it will be pertinent to write all that you want. I mean, there is a change which has to be made, but due to this pandemic situation, maybe you could not get the permission of the commissioner, or registered officers are not fully functional. So you can mention all those challenges and send this document, and once it is registered, at least you comply with the law before 30th June as of today, and later you can give effect to all these amendments as per the law.
Oh, then we can go for a re-registration.
Re-registration and amendment.
Okay. Then what are the type of, suppose some trusts or some NGOs are getting foreign funds, FCRA. Now they are all more amenable for this. Then what are the new procedures for that trusts which are getting foreign funds?
Absolutely, sir. So as I told initially, there is a complete change, a holistic check in terms of the Income Tax Act, in terms of FCRA, and in Companies Act. So as far as FCRA is concerned, that is the area where there are a lot of terrorist funding which is flowing into the country, a lot of money laundering which are happening, etc. So the government has put in one gateway through which the funds will flow into any FCRA organization. So that gateway will be the New Delhi designated branch. So every single NGO, every single organization, again here, it could be a trust, it could be a society, it could be a company. So in whatever form it is, they will have to open an account in the State Bank of India, New Delhi branch, and any fund, even irrespective of the amount, irrespective of whatever status the trust is enjoying, it has to come through only that particular gateway of State Bank of India, New Delhi branch. Now, all the trusts would have opened their accounts in State Bank of India because the last date was 31st March 2021. So if they have to receive funds from foreign country, it has to be only through that account. And one major amendment in this FCRA is, if I were an FCRA registered organization, and if you were a registered organization, I can receive funds from a foreign country and I can donate it to you. So one FCRA registered organization was permitted to donate to another FCRA registered organization. Now this key amendment is, if I am to receive a foreign fund, I can receive it only from the cross border. There is no way that I can receive a foreign fund from an Indian organization. Meaning, if I am a FCRA registered organization, I have to receive funds only from outside India, and the funds received from outside India should be deployed, utilized for the purpose as per the objectives of the trust. Trusts are completely prohibited from donating the foreign funds to another registered organization or unregistered organization. That's completely changed.
As you said that you have to FCRA organizations, they have to open an account with the State Bank of India, New Delhi. An organization which is in various parts of India, even in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, how they may not they may not be able to go to Delhi and other things. How they will be able to manage? They will be having in their own town or city or village, their own bank accounts. How they will be able to open an account? They may be having with other than State Bank of India, maybe Canara Bank or Indian Bank or Punjab National Bank.
Absolutely, sir.
But
so
how can they open an account? How they will?
Now, SBI New Delhi branch is the gateway, and that is what is prescribed by the FCRA Act. And your question is very right. If I am sitting somewhere in Tamil Nadu or Kerala or Karnataka, why will I even prefer opening an account in New Delhi? And operationally, that will definitely not be a convenient thing for me to do. And going to Delhi to open an account, of course, the State Bank of India has facilitated opening an account through all the state bank branches all over India. So that operationally, that has been sorted out. Of course, like we have crossed that stage of opening the account and all that. Now, having an account in SBI Delhi, should I actually close the account which I am using maybe in a Canara Bank in my own town or area, my city? So here the answer is no. The trust or the NGO is free to have any number of bank accounts as utilization accounts, provided they inform that they are using these accounts for utilizing the foreign funds. And this is registered. All the bank accounts are registered with the Ministry of Home Affairs under the FCRA Act. And this SBI New Delhi will be the one point where the money from outside India will flow. And the trust or the NGO is free to transfer the money from that SBI account to their own account, which is convenient. Could be their own bank branch, which they've been banking for years. They may have sentimental reasons, etc. So for their convenience and sentimental reasons, they can, of course, transfer the funds from there to their own branch and they can start functioning. But here the problem is, they have also made one other change in the FCRA Act, which says your administrative expenses cannot exceed 20% of the funds which you receive. So earlier it was 50%, and now that is reduced to 20%. Now all the bank charges which we are incurring will fall under this category. So if we were to ask whether an NGO would like to take that share in the 20%, which is very, very limited, as bank charges, the answer would be no. So maybe the government is indirectly putting everybody into one account, which is to bank with State Bank of India, so that the control becomes easy. But nothing stops from having multiple banks and multiple branches, provided they inform the accounts to the FCRA department.
Okay, now after the suppose a trust or an organization having under registered under 12AB, what type of accounts they have to maintain? Any change from the existing system of maintaining an account to the future?
Yes, I mean, prescription of the maintenance of records and accounts has not really changed much. It was there earlier as well. But is it okay if I just keep doing the same as I was doing earlier? The answer is a big no, because now we are under close monitoring mechanism. So if, for example, like there are a little added procedures in terms of the trust where they have to file forms, etc. If we take an example of the donations which are being received by the trusts. So earlier also there were rules and there were prescriptions of accounts where the trust has to maintain details of the donors. But now it has been very, very detailed that the government will really check whether you are maintaining it or otherwise. So they will have to file a return year on year giving all the details of the donor. So the PAN number or other identification number, it could be a tax identification number if the person is not in India, the name, the address, the mode in which the donation is received. It could be cash or check or other electronic mode, and for which specific purpose, whether his donation is going into the corpus or is it to a specific fund or is it a general donation, and everything. So there is a detailed return which the non-profit organization has to file, and this donation which is filed by the non-profit organization will get auto-populated in the income tax account of the donor. So earlier, people were just putting some number in the ATG and they were claiming the deductions. So the government woke up and said, you will have to give the ATG approval number and your receipt number. But again, that is not very difficult because ATG approval number is available in the website of all the non-profit organizations. So they simply take and claim the donations. Now there is a double check. So if I give donations to some trust, the trust will say that they have received the donations from me, and I will have to only acknowledge. So there is no reason, there is no requirement for me to file the details in my return to say that I have to claim this deduction. The trust will in turn file the returns for me that they have received this donation from me. And in terms of records, yes, it's going to be much more strict. And the ITR forms, the new ITR forms have come, which is asking for a whole lot of details. And to give all those details, we will have to maintain all the records properly. Otherwise, we may not be able to file the returns in a correct form.
Is there any threshold limit for receiving the donations, minimum or maximum? Minimum.
If it is cash, the answer is yes. If it is other than cash, if it is check or in kind or electronic mode, the answer is no. If it is cash, the limit is 2,000 rupees, which can be received by from a donor.
Okay. So what is that you suggest to the listeners now with all these things? So as a final to close this session.
This is high time all the organizations really do a cross check. They look back into their trust deed, because that is the mother document which they are going to carry all through. They have to revisit the trust deed for the trustees, the address, the objectives. Objectives could be still fall. I mean, the objectives, whatever they are doing today, could still fall into the definition of charity, but that may not be a mention about that activity in the trust deed at all. So it's high time to do a revisit of all the trust deed, all the clauses, the management trustees, etc. Because it is not just the organization which is getting monitored, the trustees, whoever are the trustees, I mean, at the FCRA level, it is getting monitored by the Darpan ID. And in income tax, we are supposed to give their Aadhaar number, PAN number when we are doing the re-registration. And of course, in companies, it is being monitored by the DIN number. So it is not just the organization, it is the whoever is the managing body, the committee itself is getting monitored. So the trustees are very, very important. Just lending a name and not monitoring tomorrow may hold you responsible for no fault of yours. So it is being very, very serious. So whoever is associated with the trust either should get associated, should continue to be associated. If you have all the time and energy to monitor whether the activities are genuine, whether all the regulations under all other acts are being followed by the non-profit organizations, because today the government has zero tolerance towards any non-compliance for a trust, because they are giving so much of benefit, tax exemptions, etc. And the government is really relying on the non-profit organizations for the nation's development. So there's absolutely zero tolerance towards any non-compliance. So the trustees who are associated, it's high time to revisit whether they want to be associated or to quit. So a complete revisit on the trust is important. And if you haven't filed your income tax returns, then it is high time you do a revisit of your bank account. Check whether you were liable to file your income tax returns, and if you haven't, then all the condonation mechanisms, etc., should be followed to bring it back into the compliance mode. And the third thing would be to put in place procedures to ensure that all the laws are being complied. The first check would be to assess what are the laws applicable to the trust, because somebody would have started and would have just being getting carried on till today. Maybe people would have not even visited, or they are not even aware of what all is applicable to them. So they'll have to make a checklist of what are the laws applicable to them, what are the compliances which have to be made, and put a control mechanism or a procedure in place so that all the compliances are taken care. And a list of donors, etc., the records have to be maintained very, very clearly, and the pertaining returns are to be filed. And most important is all the rules and regulations and the objectives of the trust should be followed in letter and spirit. As long as the intention is correct, I don't think anything can go wrong, and we need not be scared about all these compliances. These are passed through. Of course, there is a transition stage. Initially, this might be difficult, and probably down the line, 2 years, 3 years, we will definitely see a benefit out of all these compliances which we are doing.
Before we closing, thank you. Before closing, to sum up, what are the documents that all the non-government NGOs should keep ready for re-registration?
Okay, to re-register. Yes, to re-register, the trust deed is important, and the
original
KYC
trust deed. Original trust deed.
Original trust deed. If there is a supplementary deed, then yes, the supplementary deed, and all the KYC documents of all the trustees.
All the trustees. You mean if there are 5 trustees, 6 trustees, all the trustees of Aadhaar card.
All the trustees. Yes, and FCRA registration if applicable, Darpan ID if that is available, and if the trust is registered under any other law. For example, if it should be a trust registered under the Societies or the Trust Act, then the incorporation certificate or the relevant document in that registration. And if the trust is registered under any other law other than this, then we have an option to attach that as well. So these are
the trustees. If the trustee is already a 12A organization, then that original copy of the certificate.
Of course, copy of the 12A, copy of the ATG is also important.
That's all. That is, you mean to say that the original balance sheet, past balance sheet?
Financials, basically, like if you click on that, if you have filed your income tax returns, then it is perfectly okay. If you haven't filed your income tax returns, then all this becomes necessary. Your financials, last 3 years financials, there is a column to fill in the corpus, the reserves, the donations which you have received, the method in which you have applied, the accumulated reserves, etc. If you have filed your income tax returns, then the ITRs is sufficient.
So if the trust has already filed an updated income tax return, that they will take care of themselves. That we need not again submit the
we need not actually
income tax return again.
Yes,
okay. Only the trust deed and along with the KYC of the trustees.
Yes, sir.
I think as we go along, I think probably we will also come across a lot of doubts, and still I think it is not picked up because of the lack of awareness, and probably because of the lockdown also.
It was actually working very well. So the moment we filed Form 10A, we received an SMS, and the approval also came in very, very quick. So there are a lot of organizations who have re-registered themselves in the new regime. But now with the 2.0 version of the income tax site, we are facing technical glitches, which should get all right maybe as time passes.